Us with a little.
Here we go.
Yay.
Hey, sorry to stop this conversation, but
Thank you all. Thank you all for coming here today. We've got our recording going and we're underway and looking forward to a real terrific session and have a bunch of authors here. We're going to talk about marketing, the timing, the strategies, and everything that go with that. And we're going to start off with introducing to you Cathy Fyock, and she is the business book strategist, and she works with professionals and thought leaders who want to write a book that will be used as a part of their business development strategy. And she's the author of 10 books, including On Your Mark, From First Word to First Draft in 6 weeks, and Blog to Book, Repurposing Content to Discover the Book You've Already Written, and Authority. Her book, co-authored with Lois Creamer, is titled The Speaker Author, Sell More Books and Book More Speeches. Since her 2014 reinvention as a book coach, Cathy has helped more than 200 professionals become published authors. She believes that authors change the world one word at a time. Cathy, we are absolutely delighted to have you here today from Florida. So just please share with us a little bit more about the things you're most excited about.
Well, I love being a book coach. I feel like this is the most fun I have ever had, and I get paid for it. And it's so exciting because I am helping people step into their zone of genius and create a bigger impact in the world through their book. And that is really exciting stuff. You know, when I first started, I was really just helping people get into the groove of writing and overcoming that negative voice in your head that says, who do you think you are? But then when I realized that most all of my authors are professionals who want to use their book as a strategy to grow their business, whether it's a speaking, consulting, coaching. They're using their expertise in the world, and their book is their credential that they are the one who wrote the book on it. But when I first started, I thought I was really just helping people just get the book written. But I've discovered that part of what I do is not just help them get it written, because just having a book alone, well, it's good stuff and it will open doors, but it's sort of like a magic wand. It only does magic when you know how to use it, when you know how to wave it around. And so that's why I wrote The Speaker Author, Sell More Books and Book More Speeches with my colleague, Lois Creamer. What we know is that just having a book isn't enough. It's about how you position it, how you market it, even what you say in the book. The slice of your topic that you present, how you present yourself in the About the Author section, how you can communicate with your readers. All of those things are exceptionally important. So I love that we're talking today about how to market your book, how to get it out there, how to use it and leverage it, because it is a powerful tool. I tell my clients all the time that your book is magic, but only when you know how to use the magic wand.
Super. Thank you for that, Cathy. Yeah, I just love that analogy of the wand, because I'm going to be at lunch today at a meeting wanding my book with a fellow that I really want. So I just love that. So now I want you to know that I've taken that, and I will mention your name today, mention your name the next time, and then after that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me introduce to you Michael. Michael Seaver is an award-winning executive coach. He's a leadership consultant, keynote speaker, and author. And he's really on a mission to unlock human potential to help people uncover and live their purpose, and live a more meaningful and authentic life. His unique methodology has revolutionized how leaders can live authentically and how organizations engage employees. He offers no-nonsense strategies to help people find confidence in their life's narrative, commonalities across generations working today, and ways to communicate with emotional intelligence. Michael's newest book, I Know, is available in print, ebook, and audiobook. And Michael, we are excited to hear more from you today. So please give us a little bit more of a background and a little more depth of information about you. We're excited to hear it.
Yeah, thank you, Dwaine. And thank you, Cathy, for the metaphor around waving the magic wand. I so love that. It's such an easy metaphor to like latch onto mentally. So thank you for that. And thank you, Dwaine. So for 25 years, I've been a leader in some capacity, but for the last 10, I've been a coach. And so my coaching business started out as career development, and then it became communications training, and then it became personal branding or executive branding, and then it was executive coaching. And the last couple of years have been a little bit more focused on organizational change in management around culture. And then obviously January 1st of this year published I Know. And so I've gone through a lot of machinations and a lot of transformation in the last 10 years. And I had a number of people in my life tell me that I need to write a book, friends, clients, a number of things that kind of had organized themselves, but I realized that I didn't have the confidence to tell my story. And I definitely didn't believe that my story mattered. I was actually really scared to actually write the book that Dwaine just referenced. And so the way that I kind of got over that hurdle back in 2019 is at the beginning of the book, I talk about wanting to commit suicide. I was really struggling with some things that were happening in my life personally and professionally. So the very introduction to the book talks about that and what it meant. But what happened right after I kind of crossed over that threshold and decided to stay on Earth was I went and saw a psychic, which not a lot of people do, but it was really important for me. And she said to me something as I was walking out the door, because we didn't talk about books at all during the entire time. But as we were walking out the door, she put her hand on my back and she said, without no other awareness of this, she said, by September 30th, you need to have your book done. And then she pushed me out the door. And so she didn't say what year, she didn't say any of that. And this was May of 2019. And so I really thought about it during the entirety of 2019, that it was time to write the book, but again, didn't have the confidence. So then of course, what happened in the early part of 2020, right? Everybody, we started this whole thing around lockdowns and pandemic and all this and that. And so I had already been working with a writing coach for about 15 months. And so I just realized that the timing was lining itself up really, really well for us to partner together to work on this. So I got to work with a version of Cathy. I didn't know Cathy. So for my next book, Cathy and I are going to be right here. But I didn't know her back then. So when I was really thinking about my book, Dwaine, it was something that was really important for me as I was trying to connect the dots. So for me, when I thought about my book, I Know, it was partially telling my story. It was partially telling client stories. It was partially sharing some of the processes that I utilize with clients. So for me, the goal wasn't revenue production. The book was not designed to me to make money, right? According to Ingram Spark and some other places, the average book in its useful life sells less than 1,000 copies. Now, that doesn't mean that it applies to everybody, but for me, I was like, okay, if I'm going to sell less than 1,000 copies, what is this really about? So for me, and maybe for some of those who are watching or listening, for me, the book was about healing. It was about creativity. It was about telling my story. It was about leading by example and giving other people the courage to call someone like Cathy and say, hey, I want to be able to tell the story. It was about, for me, accomplishing a life goal, right? It was about how do I live without regret? And of course, brand credibility, some of the things that Cathy just referenced, how do we inspire others, give them the safety to do that? But for me, what it really came down to was the experience of writing the book. I wanted to have the experience of it. And so basically from May of 2020 through October of 2020, I went through the process of putting together the book. And the target audience for me is really Generation X and millennials. And I was really targeting them specifically. And when I really thought about it, what I wanted to focus in on was the feelings that they were having that I could help them transmute and move to a different place, right? So the book, in the way that it's designed, is that I move them intentionally from a place of disengagement, feeling unhappy, maybe feeling a bit unappreciated, maybe they're not living up to their potential, maybe they don't have work-life balance, maybe they're feeling restricted. But I know in the back of their mind, they want 100% control over their time. So I thought to myself, how do I make that happen? How do I move them there? So I designed each chapter in conjunction with a writing coach to tell a story, right, based on the main thesis of that particular chapter. Then we shared some psychological research to support the thesis, and we gave a 5-step process for any person who was looking to navigate that chunk of their life meaningfully by themselves or maybe with somebody else. And then we closed each chapter with a little bit of a kind of a closing story. And so I was very specific about who it was that I was trying to target and the feelings I wanted to create in them. And then the way that we did that is that the writing coach, Laura, who actually lives in Orlando, Cathy, so she's in Florida as well. The way that we kind of structured it was we got on an every other Thursday rotation. So from May of 2020 through October of 2020, we met every other Thursday. And on that Thursday, right, I basically was interviewed by Laura, and she used the Otter app, otter.ai. She used that to voice record what it was that I was saying. So on those every other Thursday, right, we were doing an interview. She was interviewing me. I was talk to texting basically the chapter, if you will. And then she would go back and take all of the words that I had just said and organize them into a chapter, into the content of the chapter, kind of the draft, if you will. So then the following Thursday, she would send me 10 or 11 questions that I needed to come up with bullet points and kind of think about that were then utilized for me to answer the questions in the next Thursday, right? So we got into this cadence where, you know, we were able to, in a short period of time, put together all 11 chapters of the book. So in September, when the vast majority of the book was already written, I reached out to 6 people in my network that were in the target audience. And I said, hey, I want you to beat this book up, like read it, tell me what's missing here. What's the process? How do we go through this? And so thankfully, I was able to get some really, really strong feedback that Laura and I could then incorporate into the book. So by the end of October of 2020, so basically for me, 6 months, we had a really, really good draft, right? Something that we were very proud of. But then in November, I gave the book to a copy editor in Ontario, Canada, to be able to put the final kind of APA style, touchings on it, if you will. So that to me was super. And how I went through the marketing piece, is that okay?
Please, yes.
Okay, thank you. So for me, what I was really thinking about as I was going through this process with the writing coach is that I needed the accountability and I needed someone else's perspective. I needed those 6 reviewers, if you will, to give me that content. But I also was very aware of my brand, the number of followers that I had, my newsletter distribution list. I have a Google Data Studio set up on my website so I can see who's coming to the website and how long they're staying, gender, ethnicity, background, age. I can see all of those things about who's on my website. So I was able to pull all of that information and give it to a public relations agent in July of 2020. So 6 months before I had already started public relations 6 months before the book was going to go live, right? Really intentionally. And there were a lot of different things that we were doing at the same time to try to make that work. From I was doing monthly webinars that I was leading, where we at the end of the webinar would do a book giveaway or some sort of reader testimonial that we would feature on that. At the very bottom of my newsletter that goes out the second Tuesday of each month, there's a section there that talks about something about the book, right? Either pulling content from the inside of the book or something, a reader testimonial. I contacted my website company and they put a pop-up on the website to say, hey, this book is coming, or after it was published, this book is live. The public relations agent and I also did a lot of HARO work, help a reporter out, so HARO.com. And so we were trying to find new places connected to my target audience that we could just get my name known a little bit more. I also, did a bunch of virtual speaking engagements during the pandemic, so I was able to reference that via a slide or something near the end of the presentation. And of course, things like social media can be really, really helpful with the marketing. So I was definitely putting out at least one piece per week where I was pulling a passage from the book, something, a testimonial after the book was published, awards that it won. That was really, really helpful. And the public relations agent and I, we talked about doing in-person book signings, but there was still a lot of, things that people were struggling with, lockdowns and things with regards to the pandemic. So I only did one book signing, and it was back in Michigan where I was raised in my small hometown. And we did that really intentionally because we wanted to partner with a particular not-for-profit there that I had known when I was a kid. And I see Dana just put a question into chat. So Dana, HARO, HARO stands for Help a Reporter Out. I think it's HARO.com. And so this is a place where I think for a small fee, you can see any reporter, maybe in the United States or elsewhere, that's looking for subject matter expertise to be able to feature inside of one of their publications. And so you can submit content. If they like it, they'll agree to partner with you on that. But it is pretty helpful. So we're going through this process of doing the book signing. We intentionally did a book signing at a very small mom and pop book place, and we partnered with a local not-for-profit to give them some exposure, and ended up making a couple $1,000 donation to them at the end of it, because I really wanted to find a way to be able to help them meaningfully too. So we're going through all of that, right? And one of the things that has been most meaningful is over the last couple of months, I've been using a website called Matchmaker. So if you haven't heard of matchmaker.fm, it's a tremendous resource for authors to be interviewed by podcast hosts around the world. So today, even though my book has been out on the market for 10 months or 10 and a half months, I am still doing 3 to 4 interviews per week by podcast hosts around the world. And the vast majority of what it is that I talk about inside of those interviews is the core of the book. So I always feature the book. I always reference the book at the end of the podcast when they ask, where can people find you, Michael? Of course, I give my website, but I also say, go to Barnes and Noble, go to Amazon, go to Google and get a copy of the book. So it's really interesting how these things all work out. But from May through October of 2020, I was writing the book, right? From July of 2020, basically through May of 2021, I was in a process of public relations and marketing to make sure that I not only had the brand pre-launch, but then had the right places post-launch that I could get as many books sold as possible, right? Get it out into as many hands. But what I wasn't expecting was for Matchmaker.fm to be as impactful as it has been. And that was one of the things I didn't know was available or even coming. I just happened to stumble across it by talking to another coach. So, if you're really thinking about, pushing a book out for yourself, there are lots of different places that you can self-publish. I ended up using Ingram Spark to self-publish for ebook and for print. And then I used Findaway Voices to publish the audio version of the book. And so both of those are great in terms of being able to find data on the back end. So I can see sales, I can see how much money I'm making, this, that, and the other thing. It's been really, really wonderful. So for me, there was a lot of thought and effort that I put into the front side, Dwaine, that had to do with what's the ideal audience? How do I customize it to them in terms of the book? But then we were very, very specific in connecting the public relations agent and the writing coach to make sure that they were on the same page too, right? Mm-hmm. Same thesis, same idea. And then we tied everything together basically over the last 18 months really to make sure that it worked. So, this is the thing about this is that I couldn't have predicted the blessings that were going to come from it, considering that 2 years ago, I was absolutely scared to tell my story. And now, and Cathy, you get to see this a lot in your clients. You see these people who go from being scared to being pretty clear and confident that was the right thing to do. And I hope everybody watching or listening can do that exact same place, right? Go from that place of a little bit of nervousness or stress or anxiety to that place of tell your damn story. Like, just tell it. Tell your damn story.
Oh, Michael, that was terrific. Thank you for that sharing and the background with that. Cathy, I'm curious as to your thoughts about that.
Well, yes, it's all about thinking about all the touch points that you have with the marketplace. So as Michael was talking about, it's not just one thing. It's not just Haro or it's not just social media. It's that plus that really makes your book go places. And that's what I like to tell people. Sometimes it's not even the big things you do, it's all the little things that you do that add up to making your book successful and out there in the market. Sometimes it's something as simple as making sure that you write about the author in a way that positions you for the work that you want to do. A great story about this, one of my clients was finishing his book. He basically was writing the book because he wanted to speak. He was a noted speaker. He was a noted storyteller and had won some slams, and he was really excited about what the book might do for his business. And what was interesting is that when I read his about the author, it said nothing about his speaking. And I said, Fred, the reason that you were writing this book was so that you could do more speaking. And he said, oh, I hadn't even thought about that. I thought this was a place for all my credentials. And I said, well, you want to put some credentials there, but really, I want you to think about what you want your book to do for you and then position your about the author in that way so that your reader knows how they should engage with you. So if you're a speaker, if you're a consultant, if you're a coach, if you are a real estate agent, you know, whatever you might be, that you need to position that and let people know how they can talk with you and engage with you.
Yeah, spectacular. Wow, what wonderful practical and frankly very understandable presentation of what it takes to go do this. And I think it's encouraging for people to have that sense that yes, they're certainly writing the book is important, but you can see that all of this work after has to be part of the preparation as you're getting the book underway and even written. So that's where the coaching comes in play with this whole thing. Gloria, you have a comment?
I just kind of wanted to concur with Michael. Yes, you can get into a heavy expense if you don't know what you're doing, if you're playing with all these things. Certainly I have done that. And I'm probably about the time I wanted to make it back and speaking engagements, of course, for me, I was still we were getting through the 2008 downturn. We were still struggling with that. My problem as a professional speaker is most of my work was done with intern programs at corporate universities all over, like the University of Toyota, the University of Caterpillar, et cetera. So when that went away in 2008, that's when I decided to start writing my books because I wanted to record that knowledge and then start to recap and speaking engagements. And it's a process because you can put a lot of money into PR. I did have a PR agent, and then sometimes you just have to pull back and figure out where you are financially because you don't want the financial picture to ruin your creativity. And I think that's the point I wanted to make. And I want to know how Cathy and Michael
That's
felt
just me,
about that.
Dwaine.
When you get to that point, you know, I would encourage people to keep on keeping on, to believe in what they're doing, even if the financial picture is looking bleak from sales. So would you comment on that, both of you, your experience?
Well, if I might just jump in there, one of the things that I tell my authors to do is to not think so much of selling one book to one reader. One of the things that sometimes we don't think about is how can I make one sale and sell 100 books or 1,000 books or more? And so your efforts are multiplying. A great story of this was one of my clients who was speaking for an organization, and she was talking with the CEO, and the CEO said, yeah, Sarah, I would love to get your book for each of our employees. And she said, well, how many employees are we talking about? And he said, 1,700. So she because she was self-published, she was able to say, well, you know, my book is self-published. If you'd like for that quantity, what we could do is come out with a special edition of the book with your logo, your company's logo on the book cover. You, Mr. CEO, could write the foreword for this particular book, and it could be a special book. I'll give you a special pricing. She was able to make quite a bit of money on that sale. And it wasn't so much about her doing lots of things or spending lots of money. It was just asking the right questions. And sometimes that is the most important thing for you to do as an author, is to be thinking very strategically about, you've got one potential sale with the speech, but how many people will be attending that particular group, and can you sell books, and can you pre-sell books to everyone there? Because it's one thing to sell back of the room at the end of your presentation, but I think it's much smarter to have that conversation with the meeting planner in advance.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, that's amazing, Cathy, and thank you for saying that. Because I have a friend, Katarina, who lives in London, and she and I were basically writing our books at the same time, and she partnered with Penguin Random House. And so she had the normal deal, if you will, through a traditional publisher, but they offered her zero support for marketing, advertising, all of those things. And so we're typical. Yeah. And so for those folks that are considering publishing through the traditional methods or through self-publishing, the work that you're going to have to put in is identical regardless. And
Yes.
so this is why I chose self-publishing, because I didn't want someone else to have creative license over my content. Right. That was really important for me. And so if you want creative license over exactly timing and exactly what you say inside the text, then definitely self-publish. But to the point that, that Cathy was kind of making, when we think about how do we go through marketing and advertising and getting material out of the book, we have to think in like way outside of the box. We can't just wait for those traditional sales to come. And so, yes, I did make heavy investments into public relations, into the website updates, into the writing coach, because I sensed that I needed to learn an awful lot from them for something that was coming years down the road for me. And so I made the investment knowing that the payoff is going to be 5, 6, 7 years down the road for me as things inside my business kind of expand. But for each of you to really think about, how am I going to get this out to the marketplace? There are so many different strategies that you're going to utilize to make that happen. And the more people that you speak with and talk to, like Ingram Spark has a Facebook group. I'm a member of the Forbes Coaches Council. I've shared a lot of ideas there. Reaching out to my friend Katerina, we're talking again tomorrow to talk about where our books are. And the more ideas that you generate and the more things that you try, to Cathy's point, that seem a little bit unorthodox, those are the methods that are going to get you into the best places that have the biggest impact, right? So be thinking about those ways as much as you can.
Yeah, this is just a little on the sort of the other side of things as we think about consulting and speaking and so forth. This last book that I've written is principally to be the brochure for the network of coaches around the world who will be engaging with our business systems, if you will. And so it really describes what we want to accomplish in the world. And so that's the reason for the book, is first of all to be able to educate the public, but also for the coaches to be able to use to know that, hey, here's what I can accomplish for you, and I'm a certified coach and I can do this. And so there's a whole business piece. And I will assure you that the value of the business is more than $1.98. And so there are a number of reasons to do this. And I think there are many folks who have these businesses who should be listening to this today and hearing what Cathy can do and the examples of Michael, because literally Cathy helping put a book together can be worth literally millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Hey, Dwaine.
Yes.
This is Dana. I just wanted to chime in and say, collectively, this has just been an incredible series. And as a public speaker and author, Global Chamber author as well, hosting a writer's event next month, I continue to learn every single time I come on these series that Gloria has put together. And, it's like we're always sharpening our tools. And I like that it's such a collaborative environment in which we can do that. So today is no exception. I just wanted to comment that I look forward every week to what's coming next. I know I'm on the list too, so I hope when I come that someone can say, I'm learning something too.
Dana, it's so nice to hear you say that, because here we are, a group of professionals using the same kind of materials and growing and developing together. And I'm like you, Dana. I feel like I learn far more than I ever contribute when I'm a part of one of these events. And so it's just really great to be a part of this. And at the risk of being too nice to Gloria, I'm so glad she started this. I don't want to start being too nice to her, because then she'll expect it.
Go ahead and risk it.
Okay. I'm really thankful.
Dwaine, something else I wanted to jump in there and share with everybody is that there's so many, like I said before, little opportunities to position your book, your services, who you are. And I'd like to just demonstrate a couple of those right now. For example, you may have noticed that my book is sitting here on the shelf. This is not an accident. This is what I tell my authors all the time, is that if you're on a podcast, if you're on a Zoom call, if you are talking with an interviewer, you should have your book there and you should show it, because there you go, Gloria. Yes, yes. So, and then something else that I share with my readers on page 76 is how you sell books while you speak. And this could be speaking during an interview, a podcast, you name it. If you can, make the title of your presentation align with the title of your book. That seems pretty obvious, but that makes it really clear that people will say, oh yeah, if I want more information on speaking and authoring, then I should buy the speaker author. Hold your book. One time I went to a program and the author,
Kathy,
yes,
can I interrupt you for just a second?
sure.
I wish you would say, wave your wand.
Absolutely.
Interrupt you, but
One time I was at an author was giving a presentation, and she went to the front of the room and she pulled out her phone and she said, I'm going to read you some things from my book. She said, I didn't bring the book, but because it's just like too much, but so I'm just going to read it from my phone. I thought, oh my gosh, she just missed this huge opportunity to show her book, show the value of having the book. She missed out the opportunity completely. So if you read from your book too, like I'm doing right now, and say, on page 76 and 77, I have a checklist of things that you should be thinking about. These are things that will make people want to go, oh, I need to get that book. So I just wanted to point out some of those things that hopefully I'm demonstrating for you here that will help you position your book whenever you are speaking or doing a media interview or what have you.
Yeah. And as you can see, Kathy, in my picture here, over my shoulder here are my two latest books that really are the ones. And I have those there. I do 3 to 5 hours a day on Zoom. And it's for many different kinds of activities, but the book is always there. And there's no need to be shy about it at this point, because almost everyone looking at it will be delighted to know that you have written the book. I'm fascinated at the places I go where people are just like, I'm going to go today and hand out some books to the people coming to the lunch, and they'll be happy to get them, and they'll ask for a little signing, and they'll go off and share that with someone. So the whole ripple starts. And adding to that, the person today is a part of an industry where I want this person to begin talking about us and what we're doing within that industry. So it's the 100x that you've talked about, Kathy, makes it too. So have these meetings quiet, calmly, relaxed, and people will be excited to share with you. And as you can see today from the author speaking today, it is impossible to avoid being passionate about what you're doing and so forth. You've written the book, the passion shows up, and it's infectious. So be comfortable with that process.
Can I say, oh, Gloria, go ahead, and then I'll say what I was going to say.
Yeah, I have a question I'd like to put to both authors. And I want to make sure this question gets in before we come to an end. I wrote my first book in 2011, and I hired a PR person, and we started creating the book signing tours. And that was a struggle because so hopefully things have changed by now, but because I self-published, I just had a real hard time. We had a real hard time getting into doors with a self-published book on a book signing tour. So I would like to know how the two of you approach that, especially for self-publishers, if you don't mind.
Yeah. I'll answer the question, Claire. I want to go back to something that Kathy said a second ago with regards to really making sure that people are aware of what it is that you're doing. And so, yes, having the physical copy of the book close by or in the background, beautiful. One of the things that was really helpful for me back in May through October of 2020 is that at least once per week, I said something about the book writing process, or a picture of me writing, or a picture of my cat with the book. And it was really interesting how through the process of writing the book, I got an incredible amount of encouragement and support through the process, right? Not publishing it, but through the process. And so I want everybody listening and watching to, like, if you're going to go through this experience for yourself, talk about your journey each step of the way, because others will definitely support you in this. So it's
Okay.
absolutely important that you do that. Now, for Gloria, like for me, like Cathy's probably going to have a better answer here, because, you know, my book was published during the pandemic, so I couldn't necessarily go down that path. So I think that traditional publishing versus self-publishing in terms of building out a speaking tour, I think that the walls are kind of breaking down there nowadays, right? Where I said a second ago that traditional marketing, traditional publishers are not really doing a lot of help anymore with regards to speaking tours and things like that. So when I looked at my public relations agent, I interviewed 3 different people and was asking for references, and I was asking for monetary impact from each of those respective people. Like, what can I expect through this? And I wanted to partner with somebody that had a demonstrated success helping other clients just like me, right? So I wanted to be able to partner with a person that could do that. Did they have the right, or did they have similar core values or purpose? Was he or she willing to customize their approach to my message and what it is that I do? Was he or she willing to call me out of my own blind spots and what that looked like? Was he or she connected to the right media, books, publishers, and to bookstores, things like that? And I really asked myself, I said, would I be really willing to form a long-term relationship with this person? Right? Or do I really believe that I'm going to learn from him or her? And so after I did all of that, and we had the conversation about, can we actually go on a speaking tour right now? I could not because of the pandemic. But if it was self-published or traditional published, it didn't matter for me. So that's why I did the webinar series, to treat it like a tour, if you will. And so my public relations agent was reaching out to various people that had already done what I was doing to see if they would like to be interviewed on the webinar or to somehow do a collaboration on the webinar. So it was kind of like a virtual book signing tour, if you will, in that I was able to partner with somebody who was in a specific geographic location. They were able to invite people from their geographic location to participate in my virtual webinar book signing. So we were able to replace the physical book signing with a virtual version by picking people from different parts of the world to do the webinar that way. So it's a little bit untraditional, but it worked really, really well for us, even though we did go the self-publishing route.
Very good. Very good point. Yeah.
And I think Cathy probably has more, because you probably have done this pre-pandemic.
Pre and during, but here's the thing. You should think about launch events not as just being in-person events. They can be webinars via Zoom. I know several of my authors have done fabulous launch events for their books, and they have been done virtually. Some have been more celebratory, where they, one of my authors sent out little champagne glasses and encouraged everyone to have a glass of bubbly there so we could have a toast together. She sent like a goodie bag of things that we could also use to celebrate. It was really, really fun. Some authors, it's more about the content and having an opportunity to present that content. And then the beautiful thing about a launch webinar is that it can be recorded. It can be shared then with meeting planners who are interested in your content. So I love the idea of not just thinking about launch events as an in-person only. They can be virtual, and they can be pretty fabulous, and they can take on all different shapes and sizes. So that's something that you want to think about. And it doesn't have to be just right when the book launches. I also say that your book launch period is not just a day, it's not a week, it's like a year or 2 or 3. And that can be really fun. In fact, one of my most recent authors, Vivian Blade, just did a launch webinar for her new book, Resilience Ready. She did it about a month or so after the book had actually come out. She came out with a companion workbook, And she actually did the launch webinar with me at the timing of the workbook coming out, and used it as an opportunity to give away free books, engage with her audience. And it was a really, really wonderful event. So it doesn't have to be in person, and it doesn't have to be just on the day or on the week that your book is launched.
Yes, yes. Really important. Really, really important. Another question I have for both of you is that it appears to me that when people hear the first time about the book, one of the things they're really curious about is, I'm going to call it the backstory. How did your story end up with this book appearing out of it? You know, that kind of thing. Is that pretty common, Cathy?
Absolutely. I love to tell the story of, for example, how I got started as a book coach, because I was a consultant first, a speaker, and had authored books to promote my business. But what's really fun is when I moved into the book coaching space, it's fun to tell the story about how I became a book coach and tell that story as part of the introduction for the book, because it makes the story, stories make the topic very sticky. And so I love it. Anytime you can tell a story, you definitely want to do that in sharing the backstory of your book.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the hardest things to do, right? Because when we authentically tell our story, even if it's a little bit different or unique from others, we have these deep-seated fears around being ostracized from the herd, right? We don't want to be perceived as too different or too unique. And I shared about myself earlier, Dwaine, where I was like, hey, I was too scared, I was too naive, I was too whatever. But I think we're moving to a time in human history where we just generally accept people for everything that occurs in their life. So I think that we're at a place where we can tell our story more authentically and more openly and be okay. Whereas maybe 20 years ago, it just wasn't a thing, right? We didn't feel safe to do that. So I'm hoping that more and more and more people feel safe to tell that backstory and tell why they did what they did or why they're drafting what they're drafting. Because to Cathy's point, it really is sticky. The human brain really loves story, right? We do really, really well when we engage the emotions and the senses in that way. So we got to find a way to get more people the courage, or give them the courage to do so.
Yeah, it seems to me, and of course, we all know that the amount of information available to us today and the channels with so much information available, that getting through that noise, one of the major things I think is being able to connect emotionally with others, and that's really where the story kind of comes in play. And I think that with the story comes an interesting thought of authenticity, from which the story grows. And I think people then impose on the authentic story and the person who shares it a sense of trust. I trust this person now because they have, peeled the onion a bit, and I can engage with that. And out of that comes an odd form of trust, even if it's in a digital environment like this. That makes a huge difference, I think.
Yeah, there's something, there's a big public relations firm in England that's called Edelman, and they do something every year this time called the Trust Barometer. And so I'm supporting you 100% in this, Dwaine, in that the person that is most trusted across all of the world today is, quote unquote, a person like yourself. Not CEOs, not government officials, not celebrities, not athletes. They're at the very bottom of the list. But the people we trust that we find the most credible, persons like ourselves, people that are in our community. So the more authentic we are, the more we tell our story, the more that the credibility of who we are builds. And so we have a natural penchant to want to go to experts because our brain perceives them to have a shortcut to some other long-term solution that would take us years to find. So by us telling our story, we have that shortcut, right? We become that credible expert really quickly.
And Cathy, I'm wondering, as you work with authors, is it a little bit of work to get them to really learn to articulate their story well? Is that a part of the process?
Sometimes it can be. It depends. Many of the authors that I work with are professional speakers, and those folks have it really a leg up on everybody else, because they've been telling their stories and they've been honing their stories and they've been paying attention to what parts of their stories are really engaging and really sticky with their audiences. So I find that speakers are usually really gifted, but I do have to encourage them to tell the story. Inevitably, as I'm reviewing manuscripts for my authors, one of the pieces of feedback I almost always give is it needs more stories. It needs more. I don't think I have seen the manuscript where I said, no, I'm sorry, too many stories. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, very good. Well, that's really exciting to hear, isn't it? And so here we are talking about marketing, the timing, and the strategies, and we're back to the basics here, which is you really have to share your heart. You have to share what you're thinking. People need to know that there's an authenticity about why you're sharing what you're sharing. And in every case, that sharing by itself, the very word of sharing, I think, is received from these audiences. So very, very exciting. So for those of you thinking about writing or wanting to write more, just recognize that it's a terrific contribution to the community for you to finish your book, get out there, share it, be a part of it, share the themes that are in the book. And that's a part of your contribution to the community. I mean, just think of our little community here.
Dwaine, if I might, just one other idea that I just don't want to let us not mention specifically, and that is, even for those of you who are still working on your books, you know, it's still something that you have on your to-do list. I challenge you to put author of the forthcoming book and the title of your book on your email signature. Put it on your website, put it on your calling cards, so that really the universe is then holding you accountable for coming through with what you said. And then to extend that, once you have the book, to be sure that you're mentioning in all those little places so that it's on your business card. It is on your email signature. It's on your website. So it's such a little thing, but yet so important that we be sure that we're letting people know all the time about what it is that we have to offer.
And it is reinforcing your commitment to do it and engaging with it. You're getting all kinds of ideas of what to add to the book, how to express things and share things.
Yes.
So it really is an important part of the writing process that you just described, I think, for every book that I've written, same thing. So that's really valuable, Cathy. Any other thoughts? Dana, do you have anything to share with us here?
Well, the only thing I would share is that we all have space to shine like the stars. There's room for everyone to shine in their lane, in their capacity, in their giftedness, in their subject matter, that they're an expert. So this is just a platform where we're reminding folks and giving you a license to do that. And I want to thank Cathy, Michael, you, and Dwaine, and Gloria again. This is incredible. Shine on. As you can see, the fall leaves behind me here in Atlanta. A bright reminder of what's to come.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dwaine.
Thank you, Dana. That's terrific. You know, it's so interesting too. Each of these sessions that I've been on now, for any number of them, I've forgotten now what the number is, but each one I enjoy more than the last. And I think it's just fascinating how much I have enjoyed this today. And of course, every time I learn, I make notes, and I really benefit, and I know that the others do as well. So it's a very exciting time. And next week, let me tell you a little bit about next week. Next week is really about selling platforms, you know, the platforms on which you can actually sell the book. And the author is Junko Horvath. She'll be there. and we're going to have this famous Lainey Dinslow. And by the way, she had a little bit of a tooth emergency that caused her to have to leave early today. So anyway, she let me know. So we missed her today, but she has her own event. So she'll be the moderator next week. Gloria, do you know if we have another speaker?
Yeah, we have Everett O'Keefe. He's been confirmed. I'm sorry I didn't get that to you, but he's been
Yes.
totally confirmed, and his background is amazing.
Good. So
Yeah,
yeah, maybe
amazing.
you can get the information to Doug so he can get it out on the website.
He has it.
as well. Oh,
Everything
I
everything
might-
is on the site.
If
oh,
I might,
no, I'm looking at the site. It's not quite there yet, but you have it all, so that's all set. It'll get taken care of as it always does.
It's
I
in
was just-
process.
I was just going to say that Everett has been my publishing partner. I'm not a publisher, I'm just a book coach, but Everett has been my partner in crime. And oh my gosh, he's probably worked with 30 or more of my clients with 100% satisfaction.
And I
which
want
is
to note
saying
that
something.
Kathy recommended Everett.
Yes.
So that's why he's here. She highly recommended him. So he's going to be amazing.
That's going to be exciting. That'll be fun for next week, and it's just fun to continue the series here. And Doug, we just appreciate you. We appreciate Gloria keeping this going, and Kathy, marvelous, and Michael, once again. When I visited with Michael on Monday as we were getting ready, I feel like I've known Michael all my life now, and yet it's only been it's been in the last year. So anyway, it's just great. And Dana, you're just a part of our team, so thank you very much for that. We appreciate it, and
Thank you.
we're
Be
so
a part.
glad to have you with us, Natalia. So glad to have you with us today, and look forward to having you join us again. I've appreciated your comments in our little chat room. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm grateful for all of you. This wouldn't have happened if you guys had not agreed to come together on this idea.
Yeah.
You know, I
Well,
need people, authors.
Tell you this, I want you to know that my arm is finally healing. It's in the healing process now from Gloria. She may look like a nice, sweet lady, but I'm telling you, she could do WWF wrestling.
It's called passion.
It's called passion.
It's called
Exactly.
passion.
Is
That's
it
an
waving the
idea.
magic wand? Are we waving the magic wand right now?
Yeah,
Kathy?
magic wand is the phrase for the day. So Kathy, I want you to know you've done it for us. So thank you all very, very much. Thank you all. I guess we're ready to wrap up here. Doug, does that work with you? Do you have a final comment for us as a close?
Well, thanks, Dwaine. Really appreciate everybody's comments. This is one of those that I started with maybe 10 to 15 questions, and now I have somewhere between 25 and 50. So I think that's progress. I'm not sure, but I either need some sort of I definitely need to start talking to people in the next few weeks, because I'm in this process too. And so thank you for bringing so many key issues to light. Really appreciate all of you, and look forward to next week. Let's keep it rolling. Gloria, thanks for everything.
Kathy,
I just wanted to make an offer to anyone who is listening here live or to the recording that I'm happy to schedule a strategy session with anyone who would like to discuss their book. No strings, no obligations. So you just need to send me an email at Cathy@cathyfyock.com, and I'm happy to do that and to talk with you about your book.
I'm definitely in line to do that. And Doug, I want to encourage you with the fact that I've done lots of teaching through the years, university environment and seminars and so forth. And I've always thought that the really brightest people in the audience were the ones asking the questions for which I had never been asked before. So I'm sure you're going to ask us some great questions. So that's where the learning is. So
very good. Well, I'll keep you posted. And thanks, Kathy, for the offer. Cathy@cathyfyock.com. There it is in the chat area. So thank
you.
You all have a good rest of the day, and we'll catch you in 6 days and 23 hours. We're looking forward to it.
There we go.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank
Bye now.
Bye.